So one more thing I need to do before I actually start. Just waiting for this. My internet has been kind of pokey lately. So it may be that it kind of comes and goes. I have shared screen and sound. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to start on my back. And you can start seated, you can start laying down, you can start in any way that feels good to you. I'm going to start on my back, and eventually I may move around, and I'll probably add sound partway through. So really take everything in however it feels right to you, listening into your own body, landing in your own perception. So just starting without any extra practices, just coming in to notice whatever you're noticing. Landing in the as is, or the what is, whatever is going on is what's going on. And just letting yourself tune into that. Taking off the backpack of your plans, the backpack of expectations, the backpack of self-judgment. Just take off all of that stuff and let it go off to the side. And just tune into perception. Like, what does it feel like to be in your body right now? What does it feel like to be you? What does it feel like to feel the earth underneath you? So allowing yourself to tune into this sense of relationship with the ground under your body. Maybe it's a chair, maybe it's the floor, maybe it's a bed. And let's just actually start with movement. So maybe you're noticing your breath, maybe not, but invite in little micro movement into your torso. So it could be head-tail connection, just letting that softly come online with very small micro movement. And you can invite in really three-dimensional movement. So there could be some up-downness, some side-sideness, some forward-backness. And maybe you just feel it in your breath, but maybe you can invite it into your spine, into your head-tail connection. And allowing it to be really free flow. So let's tune into this idea that our spine is like a river. And instead of being like a column, an architectural structure, it's a fluid structure that is part of our natural world. Just imagining it like that. And indeed, right down the center of our spinal cord is a channel where our cerebrospinal fluid goes down the middle. It's also going around the outside and supporting our brain and supporting our spine. So we're just inviting ourselves to imagine that we're floating along in the movement of this river, from our head to our tail, in whatever way feels interesting. And if you're like, oh, that makes absolutely no sense to me, just let go of that idea and tune into your breath. Feeling the movement of your breath in your body, if that feels helpful, or this head-tail connection. And inviting yourself to kind of ripple and wave through the river of your spine. And you can think of it as being from your brain all the way down through your tail. Or maybe you can even think of it branching out into the rest of your nervous system. So inviting movement, sort of an internal flow with shaping qualities or mobility qualities, or I guess shapes. When I think of shaping qualities, I think of like arcs and curves and spirals happening inside. So you're inviting the awareness of that to come online, and maybe you're making it happen, maybe you're letting it happen, or maybe it's a combo of those two things. Feeling this flow of movement, or even just breath that's moving between your head, your rib basket, your pelvis, the pelvic basin, just to add some more anatomy thrown into it, and just letting yourself move with that. We'll add a theta breath. So theta breath is a very soft hiss. And that theta breath can last as long as it feels good. Taking resting breaths, normal breathing whenever you need to, coming back to theta breath if that feels good. And imagining that this theta breath, like we have airflow coming through with that theta breath, and we also have the fluid flow within our body. So giving it this really three-dimensional, non-linear capacity for movement, right? Things that are flowing aren't going in linear patterns. They have really swirly, three-dimensional, voluptuous patterns of movement. They're not anorexic or what's the word I'm looking, anemic patterns that just don't have, these are voluminous. Let your patterns be voluminous and shapely as they are flowing through your body with that breath, sound, and maybe movement, micro movement. And think of allowing your guts and your organs to really slide around against each other. So we're inviting this internal sloshing and surging. Your eyes can be open, but if you feel comfortable, try closing them and allowing yourself to kind of go deeper into sensation. When we take out the visual field, it's easier to tune into feeling. So allowing your body to sort of ripple and wave. Take away any sort of ideas of what it is to be human and let yourself be like an organic body of water, allowing that water to express, to flow, to move freely. So there's no containment, no holding down or battening down the hatches. You're letting it flow, you're letting it mobilize in tiny little ways or in big ways. All of it is invited in. If it feels like your hands and your feet want to go online or your arms and your legs want to get involved, allow them in. No one is refused movement in the party. Everyone can move. So feeling into it in whatever way feels delicious. And if you sort of wonder what to do, you can work with the up and downness of your spine or the sideness, or even sort of the lateral head tail wagging. Let yourself play with those types of movement, and maybe imagery floats through your mind. Like when I said head tail and thought about wagging my tail, like happy dog imagery of a tail wagging. Or sometimes you see babies and their bellies are just kind of doing whatever they want. So think tuning into that real permission granted space of sticking things out, drawing them in, pushing, pulling within your own body, but in a very gentle way, not in a harsh, hard way, but in very soft, fluid, soothing way. Tuning into the fluidity of your spine, that whole channel, even the cerebrospinal fluid bathing your brain, the water in your body. Hey, Patty. Letting yourself awaken into this watery, fluid nature, and also the airflow. So air is considered a fluid because it flows. So the flow of your breath continuing to add that really three-dimensional, uncontained or rather uncontrolled, giving yourself some free flow within the movement. Coming back into head tail whenever you need to, but if it feels like, oh, I really want to reach out to the edges of my body or feel the center to the periphery, go for that. That's absolutely welcome. You could imagine that you are a sea creature, some sea grasses, or even an octopus, imagining that you're surrounded by water. So not only filled with water, but also surrounded by water. So there's a sense of suspension and support in the space around you. Just breathing into that, adding the theta breath whenever it feels good. If you start to feel like it's too much, feel free to come into stillness or have a sip of water or go to the bathroom or do something. Feel free to let yourself respond to your needs if they arise. And if you feel like you are wondering if something is right or wrong, just let go of that. Let yourself go into just curiosity. Instead of wondering, am I doing this right or am I doing this wrong? Think about, what does this feel like? What am I noticing? What's coming online? What is curious and interesting? And as we're in this sort of fluid state, inviting any little stuck places or holding patterns that aren't serving you to just release and fall away, being reabsorbed into the fluid of your movement, the fluidity of your movement. Or even if it's just the breath happening, even if you're relatively still, even if we're still bodies of water, and within us is lots of movement. Giving yourself permission to move in any way that feels good. Coming back to the head tail micro movement anytime you want to, but letting it travel out to the edges as well if that feels good. And the focus inside may be very sort of global and things are happening in different locations, or it may be sort of spotlit across the whole open, wide spotlight, or a narrowed in specific spotlight. So let it be whatever feels interesting. a lot of times I'm pinging back and forth between sort of a specific area and then a much bigger flow somewhere else. And as I'm in there, there's a sense of meandering and movement, like sort of like a fractal pattern that's continually changing and evolving. And if you feel like any sort of efforting comes online, just see if you can let go of that, soften, allow the water to express without you having to do anything. So it's almost like you're just following what's happening anyway. You're not having to push, you're just listening and allowing. And maybe things are unwinding in your body that feel kind of like pushing. If that's happening, let it happen. Just from the effort side, don't be like grasping and gripping to make it happen. Just if it is arising on its own, that's fine. You don't need to get grippy around it. Oh no, something's happening. You can just go, oh, it's curious. Something's happening. What if I let it just continue to play out? Thinking of all the times in your life where you've inhibited your movement, now you get to let it release. And maybe it's little tiny things that were held back, or maybe it's bigger things. Just stay gentle with yourself. Gentle and kind with your animal body. Inviting your inner healer online, inviting the inner nurturer into the mix with you. And that inner healer, inner nurturer loves you so much. And everything you do is exactly right in the eyes of your inner healer, inner nurturer. So on this deep level, there's a massive, massive amount of acceptance. Understanding that you're playing out your pattern of being in your life in the way that that is arising, and that is exactly right for you. So inner healer is supporting you on your journey wherever you go. No matter how many huge mistakes you've made or how many things you did wrong, inner healer is like, yes, it's okay. It's totally okay. So there's massive, massive forgiveness in there with the inner healer, massive acceptance, massive love. And the inner healer just wants you to feel good in your life. So allowing that sensation, or allowing yourself to rest, be suspended in that bubble of care from the inner healer. Inviting that inner healer to work inside your body to heal anything that is unresolved or unhealed at the moment. Just giving them permission if it is wise for you in your life path to heal something, let that start to occur in your with your this relationship with the inner healer coming online. And you don't even have to do anything. You just have to accept it. You just accept the care. You accept the love. You accept the internal working of this sort of light life force. With all that to think about, I'm going to add music and let us play out with that for a little while. This is Ambient Fields, Jeff Gersh. Takes a minute to wind up that you can hear it. If it's too loud, anyone in my room, just write me a note and let me know. Or unmute and tell me. That's another possibility. as you're moving or even in your stillness, that you're just pouring yourself around. And as you pour, you're just releasing any kind of blockages so that you can receive the love, the care, the help, the spaciousness that is available. could imagine that your nervous system is just suspended inside of your body. And every little micro movement makes it just a little bit easier. It's like it's just all going, let go, everything's okay, nothing to hold on to. So every little movement, every little flow is just softening your nervous system more and more. about the music. Well, let's just take a few more minutes to just let the breath and let yourself come back in and process a little bit before charging on into the world. Just giving yourself a few minutes of letting yourself land all the things. The transition time from being in that kind of really deep somatic unwinding and then to go into everyday life, like we want to give ourselves a little bit of time to process whatever it is before charging out into the world again, just letting us resolve anything that needs to complete or assimilate, integrate. So for me, what I have found often doing these somatic practices is that the deeper I go, the more I kind of need to rest and recover. So like I start to let my nervous system come from this very, drivey space into a much slower place. And I go, oh, I need more of this. It's not like, oh, now I feel great, I'm ready to go. It's not like a, yoga class or a Pilates class or something or a walk where you might then feel like it might be for you, but for me, it often is more like, oh, I just need to keep slowing down or taking more time to go in. So I'm going to end this session. So anyone in TV land who made it all the way through, bravo, well done.